Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 42. What you gonna do to move your career forward this week? Hi, guys. You have been magical with this self-tape May action. I mean, every time I open up Instagram, I've got like 20 new notifications that all these self-tape Mays have been posted and have tagged me. And I have to say, I'm so inspired. And I know that it's really vulnerable. I'm especially loving this like first take thing that you guys are doing, like this one take, because that was a really big thing that I knew I needed to work on, because that one take can really like mess with you. So I'm so proud of you guys. I love hearing all of the specific things that you're working on, whether that's stillness, whether that's co-stars or one take, whatever it is. I'm so inspired by all of you, and I am also contributing, and I love it. And I also know like it's vulnerable because, you know, it's easy to be a perfectionist and know that your work is out there, and I have no problem with, I love you guys who's starting your fake Instagram accounts, your Finsta accounts, because you want it to be private, but you also want to join into the fun. And if you haven't started yet, that's okay. You know, just get to it. I mean, I'm looking for 16, but also, you know, if you don't make it to 16 and you make it to 8, like that is way better than somebody who didn't do any at all. It's for you to practice whatever it is that you need to practice in your audition experience, whether that's actual self-taping or something in the room. I couldn't recommend it highly enough, and I'm so proud of you who have taken up the charge and who are putting in the work. I love it. I'm so excited. Okay, so this week we have some listener questions. I had Falk Hentschel come on, and we just, sort of did a chitty chat with all of your listener questions. So you're going to hear your listener questions being played on the voicemail 667 actor 70 for all your listener questions. And then he and I just discuss answers because, two perspectives is always better than one. Also want to do a really quick shout out to all of the iTunes reviews. Yeah, iTunes reviews. I love you guys. You guys, when you send me iTunes reviews, it's like getting a fluffy onesie in the mail that you didn't know was coming. It just automatically makes you feel warm and fuzzy and delicious. So thank you. I so appreciate. If you haven't left an iTunes review yet, please leave an iTunes review. I especially love it when you guys talk about maybe a specific episode that you learned from, something that affected you specifically. Leaving that in iTunes review really is so fantastic for me to read and to just keep in my little heart. I love it. Okay, so iTunes reviews, we've got Film Girl NYC 1234, Carrie New York to LA, Fewer to Foos. I like Fewer to Foos. Santos 125, Paulina Tacos, Blades Runner, Reddish Radish, Ashley Noel Long, and Ray Oktam, not even sure, Kelsey Collins Keener, and Noli, and Criminal John. I think I've already said hey to Criminal John, but it's double time for you, Criminal John. I like it. This episode is brought to you by WeAudition.com. That's WeAudition.com. Promo code Audrey25. Also, we've got Brad Greenquest. We talk about him in this episode. It just sort of happened that way. And he also decided he wanted to be a sponsor. So this is going to be just perfect. Brad Greenquest, GREENQUIST. All right, you guys. I hope you're on your way to an audition.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Falk Hentschel.
Falk's back!
Yay!
Don't get excited. We're not talking much about his life because, it's not so interesting. We're going to do listener questions!
Yay!
We have a voicemail, 667 actor 70. Again, that's 667 actor 70. And I've been listening to your questions and answering them myself on the podcast, but I thought it would be really great if we had somebody else to weigh in. And if I don't like what he says, I'll just cut it. It'd be so fair. So great. I love it. So, Falk, we're just going to get started, and then if you want to say anything at the end, we'll just go to it. Okay?
Yes. I have a question. Why do you always say don't forget your towel?
Is that some sort of like time's up reference? Like something awful is going to happen to you in the industry at a meeting and you're going to need a towel to clean up?
Wow, that question went super dark. I'm not telling anyone what Don't Forget Your Towel is about, because that's part of the fun, is there is something that it is in reference to, and you have to guess. And if you guess correctly, I will tell you that you're right, but then you can't tell anybody else.
Can callers dial in and guess?
Yeah, please dial in and guess what Don't Forget Your Towel is about. I dare you to. I've only had one person get it right, which I think is impressive. So there you go. Okay.
What is it? 667 actor 70?
667 actor 70.
Damn.
Hi, Audrey. My name is Rita Kareem. I am an avid listener of your iPod, and I've just been acting for a little over 2 years, and I have a manager, and we're trying to get me a theatrical agent that's having a hard time. I have an appointment with a medium-sized agency on February 1st. I think she has about 500 on her roster. But then I also have another meeting with a smaller, newer agency. They have about 150 people on their roster. So in your opinion, should I go with the larger, more well-known agency, or go with the newer agency so I can get more attention since I'm starting out, and perhaps I would probably get more auditions with the smaller agency? I would love to find out what your thoughts are, and thank you so much for doing your podcast. I really love it. I've learned so much, and congrats on your upcoming wedding. Thank you. Bye.
Rita, thanks so much. I think your name is Rita. It was kind of hard to tell, right, Falk?
It was Vita.
Rita, something Ita. So, Falk, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I hope your meeting went really well.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, and I don't know how helpful this would be, starting out, I would say whatever agent you have doesn't matter. I feel like you gotta do a lot of work anyway, and also in a way that stays that way. But the smaller agent, like you said, you're right. If you have a good personal relationship, and I think that's what it's about in general, like how do you connect to the agent? How much are they interested in you? And then next, I think, is what context do they have? But I think you can always make context as an agent, but have a good personal relationship. Follow your gut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think personal relationship is really important. So when you started out, did you have like smaller agents that were helpful?
I had smaller agents, but I also sucked at the personal relationship thing. I didn't know what to do with agents, you know?
And you had a lot to get better at also,
Yes.
I would say. Like
I suck.
we had different, he didn't suck. He just had like a thick, give him your German accent. Give him your like weird German accent you had.
I've probably spoke like this a little bit, you know, not too thick.
I've heard the videos. And it was very German. And I was like, what? That's what you sounded like? It was cartoony. It was so crazy. And he had like this thick dancer hair. Like it was so bleached and
This
so
thick dancer hair.
It was so silly. It was like this curly bleached blonde dancer hair. He was confused. So you had a journey to get better at.
Yeah.
So part of that is like where you are when you are starting. What are you really starting with? So if you have come with some real conservatory training, or you've been had just a lot of practice along the way so that your skill set was of a certain level, that to me is a different agent need. So I had started with some smaller agencies, and I would say it's interesting. They were smaller agencies, and yet I think still had a lot of clients. So I don't know how that would rank, but lower level, I would say agencies with more clients. And it was confusing because I would go and talk to anybody about my agent. They'd be like, oh, so-and-so, I love them. And so I thought, oh, well, they, I'm quite loved. But again, was still really only going out for like some commercials, some non-union commercials at that point. And I'd booked a couple. And then the director from one of the non-union commercials booked me on my first SAG commercial. So it sort of, piggybacked that way. But I think what I hear is it doesn't matter where the agency's at. It matters who the agent is and what kind of relationships they have. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that.
And that's just one of those things that unfortunately you can't know. When somebody's starting out, You have to remember, if they're a smaller, newer agency, we're talking about contacts. Like, is this agent going to get you in the room? And when I talk with newer agents and newer managers who are sort of new babies in the business, they don't have more contacts than you have. So I actually kind of feel like in this situation, maybe the more mid-level agency is better, because who's really coming in with the asset? That's what I would say. Right. Like, is the agent that's a smaller agency, are they a smaller but really reputable, well-known agent at this smaller agency, and they're going to pull you up?
Yeah.
Or is the larger agency that's a more medium level, 500 clients in their roster, also 500 clients, but how many agents? So if there's 500 clients, but 5 agents, that's a different situation. If there's 500 clients, but only one that looks like you, that's also a different situation.
Yeah, it's hard.
So there's a lot of factors to sort of weigh in. And if you're going with the only thing I think would be a mistake, in my opinion, would be to go with the lower level, smaller agency that's just starting out in hopes that you would get more attention. But at the end of the day, more attention without connections on their part doesn't necessarily equal anything. No. It just means more attention to you without really any ability to get you in the room. If your agent doesn't have any more relationships as an agent than you do as an actor, which is a lot of you true, and you just don't know that that's true, that's hard. And also, what the relationships do they have? Like, this is a good thing for you to do in meetings, you guys. When you go into a meeting and they ask you what relationships you have with casting directors, you can also say, what relationships do you have with casting directors? Now, first of all, no, they're just completely going to lie to you. So just FYI. But what they will do is if they look like deer in headlights and then they get a little huffy and a little angry, bad sign, don't sign with that agent. It's because they're sort of wanting to use you, but they don't actually have the contacts to do anything with you. And they aren't used to actors coming in and talking to them who know what they're talking about.
To add on that, I think that's the best advice that Audrey just said, just in general. Interview your agents. Mm-hmm. Like, do not be scared to have a list of what you want, where you want to go, and then, have them out for lunch, interview, and just sort of like really get answers.
But also, I will say that this depends on what level you're at. Because if you're at a low level, if you have 0 co-stars and you come swinging your dick into some fucking agency and you're like, but what do you got to ask? What are you going to do for me? Let's go to lunch and you can tell me how you're going to make me a star. If I'm an agent, I'm like, calm down, kid, and get the fuck out of my office. But if you're some of you listening are sort of maybe medium level actors, you're maybe phase 2, phase 3, you're looking to level up your agency, that's a thing that a lot of actors, as you go up, are looking for who's going to continue to push and support you, right? And so I do think at that point, the more you can go into the meeting, knowing what you're talking about, knowing what shows just came out, knowing who got cast, knowing what you're looking for, knowing who the creatives are, knowing who the producers are, who are the showrunners you're looking to get into, having a good sense of your casting, having a good sense of your relationships, that to me has always garnered the best results. What do you think?
Sounds great.
Great. Okay. Thanks, girl. Okay, ready? And...
Hi, I'm Ariel. I'm still trying to get an agency, and I have little experience. I am doing research on monologues to perform for agents because I have 2 SAG agents in my city. I live in Houston, Texas. I was wondering what you think about writing your own monologue. I have a very difficult time finding monologues that I feel really suit me and are contemporary enough to audition for television and film, which is what my focus would be. Basically, I'm just wondering if you think writing your own monologue is a huge no-no, or if it's okay as long as it's good. Thank you, and thank you for all your help.
Ariel, OMG. Okay, so in Houston, she's saying she has 2 SAG franchised agencies, and I think that the answer is probably a little different for Houston than I would give you for LA. So, Falk, go ahead.
I was lucky enough that I never had to do scenes or monologues at an agency. If you have material, I think you probably get to skip it. But Man, my gut instinct, and Audrey will give you the real answer that will be helpful. My gut instinct is take a scene that is right for you casting from a show or like an archetype that you will sell well, that you think that you excel at, and do that. My other answer would be get a really nice reel made and send that in.
Yeah. If you were going to do this in LA, you probably would never do a monologue. But in fact, writing your own material in Los Angeles is seen as a bonus because they want to know that you have other skills, because being somebody who can write and create and be an actor is all like really powerful stuff and worth something here in Los Angeles. I'm guessing that's not the case in Houston. And I'm guessing that in Houston, they probably would get a little huffy about it, because usually in the smaller markets, they're a little bit more old school. So I would say what they're really looking to see is how talented you are and how able you are to take somebody else's text and make it your own. That's what they're all looking for. They're looking for like, what is your casting? And are you going to show up, do this monologue, and completely freeze up? That's what I think they're probably really looking for. So I would choose a monologue that has already been written, but look for something in TV and film. Some of these streaming shows have great monologues. Look for something, there's like a lot of voiceover stuff. Find something like that and then take the voiceover and then do that. That's something that's going to maybe push you a little bit more towards television and film and the contemporary direction that you want to go in. There's also great things like Winter's Bone, any of the sort of independent films. When you're talking television, they don't have, for like network television, they don't have actual monologues because it goes too fast. But anything streaming, anything independent film, there's usually a lot more opportunities for people to have monologues and to take their time telling the story. So I think that's what I would recommend.
Would you say, to add to your Winter's Bone recommendation, like stay away from anything too popular? Like stay with Winter's Bone, things that are really good but that weren't super mainstream?
It's a tricky thing, but what I remember when auditioning for colleges with monologues, this is Imu-san. She was like, now some of you has spent a long time like finding something unique, finding something original, so you could be like the different person, because you don't want to come in and be the same person doing the same monologue that everyone's seen 1,000 times. But like, just so you know, like, congratulations, that may have like hurt you, because what happens is then I spend the whole 2 minutes wondering what this is. Like, who was this? Like, what did they do? But if it's from a play like that, I already know. If you're doing Glass Menagerie, like I know Glass Menagerie, and so I have context for it, and then I can see like what you're bringing to Glass Menagerie. So if you have a monologue that I've seen 1,000 times, don't be upset, because it might actually work for you. And if you have a monologue that like I've never seen, it's hopefully still interesting and engaging, and I'm going to just be enthralled by you. But also, I may be spending the whole time like trying to figure out what the story is. Like, what is this? So I would say if it's something like Winter's Bone, then you can say, hi, my name is Ariel so-and-so, and this is a monologue from Winter's Bone. Right. Always know what the monologue is from. And then I would say, in general, if you're in LA and an agency is asking for a monologue, I would run. Right?
Yeah.
But in a smaller market, I imagine that's quite common. So I hope that was helpful. Moving on.
Hi, Audrey. This is Caroline. First of all, your podcast is, I'm literally at home on a Saturday night listening to it, like on the edge of my seat. It is everything. So thank you so much. I'm currently on the episode where you're talking about smaller markets, and I'm like really intrigued by Albuquerque in New Mexico. And I was just wondering, if you're an actor in LA considering a move to a smaller market, should it be a priority to get representation in that new city before you move? Sometimes I feel like reps in the smaller market, like maybe they don't even like give a shit about you if you're based out of LA. So, okay, that's my question. Thank you so much. Bye.
That's all you.
That's all me. Okay. Hey, Caroline, what's up, girl? Okay, so I do have lots of answers to this question. And I would say right now, the way that it looks like the smaller market is rolling, in my experience, they're not even taking you until you actually are living there, because so many actors think that because they're in LA that they're just more valuable than the people in the smaller markets. And that's just sort of an attitude problem thing that they have. Whereas the smaller markets have a lot of pride about the great work that they're able to do in the smaller market level. So they don't trust you is what I want to make as my main point. Because a lot of LA actors are like, I mean, just tell them to cast me off of tape. But what I want you to know about two of the main casting directors in New Mexico in particular, Jo Edna Bolden and then Kira, is that Kira, though she be young and small, she be mighty. And she casts everything over there. And she got no time for ego, for bullshit, and for drama. And Jo Edna has been casting in general for decades. I mean, she is a veteran groomed boss ass bitch. They really need you to be there because they don't want to damage relationships with their producers because you're in Los Angeles and you're not going to get to them ASAP to go and shoot. But if you're like a broke ass actor who's going to be in LA and then you're going to get some opportunity that's going to send you to New Mexico in like 10 hours and you're unwilling to then spend the $300 and something to get you there in the next, 4 hours because you need to get there fast, then you are not right for the smaller market. So I recommend going, getting the agent, staying. In my experience, they will not take you seriously and will not even consider you until you are there and getting the meeting in person.
I have nothing to say.
Yeah, no, you don't know about the small market. Your smaller market is Germany.
Yes.
That's your smaller market. Okay, great. Let's move this to...
Hey, my actor question is, how late will you find out if you are being released or booked when you're on a veil? Right now, I am less than 24 hours away from a possible rehearsal for a commercial, and have not found out, and I am on first avail. So I'm just curious, how late can they let you know? Thanks. Love ya.
Okay, so I'm going to talk Avail because Falk doesn't really do commercials, nor has he ever. And he in fact did
I've done one.
Do you want to tell them what you were cast as?
Oh, yeah, the Mountain Dew one. The one that was supposed to go giant, where it was a Nazi playing yo-yo against an American soldier. That was a great idea.
It did not
pan
out,
go.
Okay, good. So, but I'm going to talk about Avail, but you talk about Pinned.
Pin you get when there's real interest and people want to know that you're available, which I guess is very similar to Avail. And then they put a pin in you to sort of say, hey, don't go anywhere, don't book anything. You're in the running. Usually for me, that means there's another guy, one or two guys that all get pinned. And then they get run by studios, whatever, whoever hasn't approved yet. And then often, to be honest, unless I follow up, it can happen that you'll never find out. You just know because it's shot or you saw it in the movie theater. But sometimes and often you can just call. I call my team and just sort of go, hey, I'm trying to make plans. Supposed to shoot tomorrow. I'm guessing we're off pin. And then you find out.
Yeah, I would say they try to be very good about letting people know that they've been released from their pin. Casting does, but they get really busy and things go a little bit awry. Pin and Avail are the same thing. Pin is theatrical, Avail is commercial. And my experience with Pin is that theatrically they're very good about only pinning like two people. They have like the choice and then another choice, right? And usually they know who they want. And then whether or not that person is the person that gets picked is what depends on so many things. You have to remember they have like a lineup. Like if it's network, they'll have an entire lineup of like, 3 or 4 shows that are going to happen that night. And if you have like you're pinned for the bad guy, then they have to make sure that the bad guys all kind of look different and seem different. So it has so very little to do with you usually. Avail, however, they're like putting like 80 people on Avail. So I tell and that's newer. And so I want you to know I spend most of my life on Avail. Most commercial actors I know are on Avail most of the time. They're on Avail more often in a year than they're not on Avail. So that just means like you're working properly. And so what you're really asking me is like, when can you give up hope? Never. And that's like the most painful answer. And I hate to say that, but generally what I say is if you know the day of wardrobe and, wardrobe day has finished, then I'd say you can release hope. But I have been called at 11 o'clock for a wardrobe at 1. So if wardrobe has finished, you're done. And why I think wardrobe has to finish is because sometimes what happens is two people will come up to wardrobe and then they'll realize, oh, these people actually don't look like brother or sister. Or, there's three guys in an office and all three of them look identical once we have them next to each other. So one of them gets sent home packing and then they'll call somebody who's on a veil and bring them in to finish wardrobe. So when it's finished, when the day of wardrobe is finished, that's when I think you can give up hope. So that's the life we chose. Tra-la-la. Okay. Anything else?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good.
Hey, Audrey, this is Yosef Kaznetskov listening from New York City. I just had a quick question. So say you book a co-star role and you have a few scenes where there's some speaking parts for you, but when the episode finally airs, they actually cut out a lot of the speaking parts. Is there any way to still get that footage to use it for your demo reel? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I don't know on the co-star level if that's a lot to ask for. I have asked if you have a connection or are friends with the producers or somebody higher up. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but that sounds tricky to me because there's so much legal tape, as in we can't give it out, rightfully so, and that footage is probably lost forever.
Yeah, I would agree with that. If you have done a co-star and your stuff gets cut, the best hope that you have is maybe sometimes there's a director's cut or they do a behind the scenes special episode or something like that where that might be released as part of the DVD package, and some actors hold out for that. But I just want you to know, if you do a co-star, plan on it getting cut. Ask yourself this. If my scene was cut, what would be missing from the show? If you can't really think of anything, you're probably going to get cut, even if you have a few lines. I have friends who've had entire guest star arcs, and it has been cut down to them waving and saying hi at the end of an episode. So you just can't get excited until it airs. Don't tell anyone about it. Once it airs and you see it and you're proud of it and you're excited about it, then post it online and be like, that was me. Look at me doing great work. But as far as what Falk said about having connections, if you have a larger role and Falk works a lot, so he makes friends with the producers and the showrunners and whoever, he's talking to people on set, the creatives. And in that situation, you can often go and ask for a hookup as far as somebody like that is concerned. Hey, I know that scene was cut. Do you mind if I have it? I'll put it on my reel. And that's a real trust thing because network doesn't want that out there. And the creator, the person who did the edit, they don't want that scene out there either. They don't want the scene out there. That's why they cut it, is because it actually doesn't work for the story. And even though you're an actor, you're actually beholden always first and foremost. Story is king. So Falk might say, can I have a copy of that scene? I'm going to put it on my reel. I promise I'm only going to have it on my reel. I won't have the reel go public. It'll just be on breakdown so nobody can see it. Is that possible? Can I do that?
And most likely the answer is no.
And most likely the answer is no. Yeah, they're protecting their work. So no.
No.
Sorry, Yosef, but I adore you. And I'm glad you keep calling, Yosef. Okay, next one.
Hey, Audrey. Thanks so much for doing your podcast. So I've got a question about referrals from my rep. I recently asked my rep if he knew any good coaches, and he gave me someone's phone number and said, they're really good. I've been working with them for years and they know producers and that sort of thing. So I did my own research and I found that this acting coach is actually related to my agent, and they didn't say anything about that. So how should I deal with this? And what do you suggest for getting resources from agents or managers all around? Thanks so much.
I mean, that just makes me uncomfortable. I feel like I've been really lucky to have not had to deal with that. It sounds like there's a little bit of, family business going on, which I want to say is probably very natural. Just the fact that it wasn't disclosed is what worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I think that what's weird is that they didn't say BTW. We'll just say it's the sister. I know it's not the sister. I know
my
who
sister is lovely.
But yeah, my sister is actually an acting coach. You should call my sister. She has lots of connections to lots of producers and people and such and such and such. And go ahead and check it out. But I'd say the thing that's most uncomfortable is the lack of transparency. You guys know I'm so adamant about transparency. So it's the withholding of information that I think is weird and would make me uncomfortable. If you guys are looking for coaches and you need a resource that you trust, I have coaches posted on audreyhelpsactors.com, all kinds of coaches, all kinds of classes. These are people that I have vetted, that I know personally, that I have either used or I send people to and get like results. And just, do you want to talk at all maybe about coaching in general and your point
I got a question for you actually,
Mm-hmm.
on what you just said and following on up. Personally, another red flag, which it seems like maybe it isn't one for you, like when coaches are sold to me based on their context of producers and casting directors, I sort of get confused because I'm like, they're supposed to teach me acting. I don't, and what are they really going to do? Are they really going to call their producer friends and say, I mean, it can happen if you like become the best friend with the teacher, but overall that for me personally wouldn't be something that I look for in a coach.
Well, I would say that depends on whether the coach is old school or new school. And the way it used to work in town, this is like in the old school days, that you would be in an acting class and your acting teacher actually had a lot of power.
Oh,
and so
I'm oblivious.
Oh, yeah. So your acting teacher would be able to call a producer or call a casting director and be like, I've got this kid. They're perfect for your thing. Hire them. And then they would get hired.
The more you know.
Yeah, the more you know. And so I think that's a sort of changing of the guard. There's acting coaches that you can actually get seen by, and then there's acting coaches that are booked up solid. So the ones that are booked up solid are probably more old school and also do have those connections. They can call somebody and say, I've got this person. I think they're really great for you. However, know that they're not going to do that for anyone. That probably is a relationship over a long period of time that is built where there's trust, not only in you as an actor, but you as a person who will show up, be gracious, be an asset, so that when they're recommending you forward, it's like, I'm giving the person I'm recommending you to like a present. Like, congratulations, here's a present I bring you. That to me is where that would make sense. But generally I'd say, yeah, that sort of MO now for coaches is they're just going to coach you. Do you want to talk at all about your experience with coaching?
Yeah, I've been, when I first hit the ground in LA, I tried everything, I feel like, every single class. And my experience was that you got to stick with one. Like I've seen a lot of actors that jump around from like the most famous coaches and they do them all, but they've never been with any of them longer than 6 months.
Yes.
And to me personally, I've been with my coach, Brad Greenquest, plugging him here.
Yeah.
Still now, I moved, but for over 14 years.
Right.
And I feel like after, 5 years, there's something that you finally bring up in your life that you can solve and get better. And then 10 years later, and like it's a craft that takes a while, that takes trust to have to a coach to like even let him in or her in on your problems and how you overcome them.
Yeah.
Find somebody you want to be loyal to and that's loyal to you and that you trust.
Yeah, I love Brad Greenquist. We can just go ahead and take this moment. I think he's one of our sponsors. So if you want to talk about pimping him out, I'll go ahead and talk about, he's on the west side of Los Angeles, which is what I really recommend. There's very little access to professional coaches on the west side, I'm meaning Santa Monica. So I so recommend him for that. He has a class that is quite different from a lot of classes. It's on camera. He does everything from very contemporary material to much more classic material, and he'll do it all in one class. Like he'll hand somebody something that's really classic, and then he'll hand somebody else like the newest pilot from something, and working different muscles with different actors depending on their needs and then depending on their needs right now. And it's all filmed. And what I really like about him is that he's a working actor and has been for decades.
Yeah.
Like he works several jobs a year, commercials, television, film. And I think that that's really valuable.
And he really, the most exciting thing about him for me was always that each student, and I've seen a lot of students go in and out of his class, he really cares, and he's not going to give a blanket method to the whole class and repeat that. But he'll really focus on you and what you need in that time, which can change.
Yeah, I really recommend actors to him, especially for on-camera technique. For a lot of you, I know Falk comes alive in that, like, because he's a dancer, I think, too. If you're a dancer, this is something you should really consider. When he is working the tilt of his head, the way he moves his shoulder before he says something in a line, the way he angles his body and then reveals it at the revealing of some text is really very effective, and I think is super effective, and part of why he probably books so many jobs off of tape. He works a lot from self-tape submissions, and now you're almost exclusively self-tape, right? So I think that that has been a really huge asset for you. So if that's something that sounds cool to you or registers to you as something that would be interesting, I really do recommend him. I send a lot of people to Brad. And what I'll say about coaching for me is I'm a huge fan of exactly what you said, a long-term relationship over time. And actually, a lot of these coaches that are sort of like the famous coaches, we all know who I'm talking about, what I've heard from casting is that they know who's getting coached by these coaches because they'll have 4 actors come in and all do the same read, you guys.
Oh, wow.
So the coach is like, this is how they want it, and then they'll do the same read each time. And I think that sounds like murder and death to me because my magic comes out of my own unique personal point of view.
Yeah, what do you bring to it?
How does this story get told through the filter of Audrey? And that has resulted in many, many opportunities where I walk into the coaching thinking like, I don't know, let's just fuck around with it because like I'm not going to book it anyway, to really discovering a real pocket that makes me in the role really fantastic. And then I'm bringing something really interesting and then I book it.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So if you're looking for that, it's bradsclass.com. That's bradsclass.com, BRADSCLASS, bradsclass.com. He does privates, he has classes, and I super recommend him. And so does Jesse. Jesse loves Brad's actors. So go forth and conquer. Brad's class. Okay, ready?
Audrey, hey, how are you? Just wanted to first say thank you. Your podcast is awesome, and it's definitely something that's very needed in our industry because it often feels like it's a journey without a map. Anyways, I'm calling from Chicago, and I moved back about a year and a half ago from Los Angeles. Jump to the point. I know all the casting directors here. I'm lucky enough, fortunate enough to get in the room, and I think considered, within a top 5 for my type to get into rooms. So I constantly see the same people, which is great. Although there's only a handful of shows shooting here, and I just did one, had a guest star, which is awesome. Anyways, now I'm stuck kind of in limbo because I can't do those shows for 3 years, and I'm considering moving back to Los Angeles because I feel like I'm in my prime now as far as growing into my age, I guess, in my look. Anyways, just wanted to know, do you think it's more beneficial to move back to Los Angeles where I feel like there's maybe more opportunities, yet harder to get into the rooms, or stay here where it's a big fish in a small pond sort of feel, but less opportunities? Thank you very much. Thanks again. Bye.
I'm sure he's talking about the Chicago Med, Chicago PD.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it works with that, but I'm wondering if you have a guest star on one that you can't do any of the 3 because they're really made as like
A universe.
Yeah. And so that's probably when he says 3 years. It's like you can do Chicago Med now, but you're on hold for Chicago PD for another 3 years or Chicago Fire for another 3 years because the universe isn't going to bring you back around as another character until that's done. So the 3 giant juggernauts he has an opportunity to be on, he just got crossed out of. Okay, go for it.
Oh man, in that case, I'd say, yeah, go to LA. If you sound really professional and serious about what you do, and it sounds like it's going really well, congratulations. Why not take the plunge and the risk? And it sounds like you've been in LA. Mm-hmm. There is a ton of opportunity here, and then come out and good luck to you.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think I'm curious as to why you went back to Chicago. Did you go back to Chicago because you were throwing a tantrum here and you were frustrated, so you went back to Chicago, and then you got momentum off of the energy of being free of Los Angeles, but really you were kind of using the market as a way to sort of grab some momentum, or were you really going back to Chicago to think that you were going to continue to live in Chicago for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
And if you were really going to consider living in Chicago for the rest of your life, then it sounds like maybe you weren't realistic with yourself about what the opportunities really are there. Maybe you didn't know that if you were on one of those shows, that then you'd be crossed out from all three for several years. I don't think it is financially advantageous for companies to shoot in Chicago in the same way it is in Atlanta and in New Mexico, just because cost of living in Chicago, though cheaper than Los Angeles and New York, is not anywhere near as cheap as Albuquerque. So I'm not sure what kind of production is going to continue to grow in the Chicago market. If you already have some contacts here, if you have some connections, then I actually think this, as soon as that guest star rolls, you should be out here already. So that way you can have some momentum to go off of. But just know the thing that's hard about LA that people really find in LA, and I can't speak to this about New York, I wasn't there long enough, but in LA, the thing that people constantly come up against is just nobody cares about you. Right, Falk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And don't you, I mean, you're at a level now, and
I still hear it.
Do they care about you?
No. I mean, sometimes if you're lucky. That's our real prize, to have somebody really care. It's
and
rare.
tell them about your resume. Like, you've got a real fucking resume.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, I think that's the carrot that's always dangled. You do this one, and then people will care, and you do this one, and then it will care. And I think
and they never care.
And they never care. I think unless you get surprisingly nominated for Winter's Bone, or you really hit a big financial success, you're not a commodity. I think it's really, in these days, I think the main thing is how valuable are you as far as the eyes go that want to see your work.
Tell them about the book that you learned about.
The book?
The studio book that they have with actors' faces
Oh,
on them.
God. Yeah, just the studios, like sort of whether you're on the studio list of having been approved to even be considered.
Yeah, whether or not you equal money at all to them, basically. And if you're not even in the book, they don't give a fuck about you, right? And so I think we have more of a lifestyle question, and what kind of life do you want to do? Yeah. Because you're growing up, you're getting into, I'm assuming, a more mature casting. What kind of life do you have? Falk has chosen to live in Oregon now, and he comes into LA on occasion to do some meetings, to do some, face-to-face auditions maybe for something that's important. But otherwise, he's self-taping in Oregon because the Los Angeles lifestyle just wasn't working for him long term. But he had to get to a level wherein that would be acceptable for him to be not here and to still be considered for roles.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right?
Yeah.
So on the professional note, I'd say, yes, I would come back to Los Angeles and ride the momentum of this guest star, see if you can get with a better agent, see if if anyone cares. But no, you may come back here and nobody cares. That may happen. The only reason I really feel like I came back from New Mexico and people cared about the momentum that I had gotten was, one, I had already really spent years nurturing casting director relationships, nurturing them. And then I had my manager, Abby, and she was just, a little boss-ass bitch, and went toe-to-toe. And every credit I got, she was like, hey, I have this girl. And she just booked this thing, and blah, 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 and see her. But she also knew she could stand behind my talent and make that pitch, and that it would serve her well. So I guess that's what I have. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. And don't be, we've talked about this last time I came on, don't be angry at it. I think I was very angry. And in this book, I wouldn't call it a book, but a list, whether that's a studio approval list, just meaning, yes, once you've gotten approved for Fox or whatever, and then you're up for it again, you don't have to go through that part of it because they're like, yes, he or she has done it. It's okay. But that these things exist, or the value, am I an overseas value right now? Am I whatever on the highest level? That's just what it is. We're a business, we're an industry, we got to earn it. And, yes, have self-confidence, but it just takes time.
Yeah.
I always say my mom needed to study medicine for 10 years before she made a dime. And then,
absolutely,
do an internship for free. And now she makes money,
Okay, ready?
Hi, Aubrey. This is Melissa from New York City. And my question was about styling for headshots. And I was wondering if you know anyone online who could help me out, or any general advice. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to say, Melissa, I did have somebody in New York who was styling headshots in New York, and she is no longer doing that. It's just, what's hard about it is that actors can't pay a lot. And so it takes a lot of energy, and it especially takes a lot of that in New York because you like literally have to truck all over Manhattan for 6 of the months in like the cold ass fucking snow, right? To go and shop for and with somebody. And then the town is really expensive. And so the money that it takes and the time and energy it takes to style somebody is quite high. And the amount of money it would cost for it to be worth it for a stylist over there to really be good at it and know it is, I haven't found it to be advantageous to the stylist yet in New York City. And I'm hoping that that changes. You know, one of the people who does it successfully out here, she's also a working commercial actress and theatrical actress, and she works a lot. And the way that her schedule is, because she's working, is she has some fluidity and some flexibility in her ability to both help an actor and also take acting jobs. Like if she were to book a campaign, she would sort of be out for like 7 days. She wouldn't be out for like 7 months. So that's kind of what's happening right now. I wish I had more help for you. You can go ahead and Google her. Maybe she can do something. She's on the website, Buckley Sampson, as a stylist. And if you guys know anybody in New York who can do it, who's good, please give them my info. I'd love to vet them and see if there are people I can recommend forward, because so far I've been unsuccessful in that.
Hi, Audrey. I wanted to say thanks. And once again, I've taken your advice. I asked my LA talent agent for a talent report, and he was hesitant to do that. He has been in the past, but I politely insisted in order to figure out better my brand, yada, yada. What I got back on the talent report was 16 submissions for the past 6 to 7 months. Not auditions, but submissions. So I thought that was extremely low. I was a little upset about it. I asked a couple of actors who are in my level who book, and they felt the same thing, that perhaps it should have been in the hundreds, maybe even close to 1,000 submissions in that time period. So my question to you is, how do I respond? I like the guy. We have a good rapport. He's a good dude. But the numbers have to go up in order for me to thrive and for him. So what's best for business? So thank you again. I appreciate your time. And I tell everybody about the podcast. I'll be listening. Bye.
Yay, thanks. That was such a great question. Falk, take it away.
I don't know. It's always hard to say when you don't know what level you're at and what conversations you've had with your agent. Like I know, for example, that my submissions are probably not that high either, but that's the agreement. You know, we're picky. So unless you've had that conversation with your team, I think it sounds extremely low.
So what do you recommend he do?
It's a tough one. I think I would keep being polite and say, what do you think is going on? You know, ask your agent, like, is there something I can be doing? Sit down and make a new battle plan. Something isn't working.
Yeah, I would say I don't give a flying fuck if you like the guy. That's not acceptable, is my point of view. But also, I know that this is a one-sided conversation. And for all I know, you're super crazy. So I don't know, you know. But I will say you sound like a nice guy. You sound like, obviously, you listen to the podcast, you're hardworking, you're not afraid of confront. I love that you were using what Milton used to call good-humored inflexibility to make sure that you got your submission reports. A lot of you have been saying, like, I contacted my person and they're not giving me the reports. And I'm like, okay, well, you have two choices. You either don't get the reports and you like eat it and you just like let that be okay, which is a choice that you may want to make. Or you use good-humored inflexibility, which is meaning that you use charm, humor, grace, all those things to get what you want, even though it's maybe going to be a little bit terse. But you call it out and you don't back down. For you in particular, it also depends on the level that you're at and who this agent is. So when you guys are calling, I need a little bit more information as far as like the level that you have. So if you have a couple of co-stars on your resume or if you've got a couple credits, that's absolutely unacceptable. My rep sends me my submission report, sometimes daily, but usually weekly. And I mean, it's pages long, but she's not just like blanketing everything. She's like, the stuff that she's sending me out for, I know she believes is right for me, and also relationships. And there's submitting, and then there's also pitching. So sometimes I'll be maybe submitted for like 16 things in a week, but I'm being pitched for the ones that she knows she really is going to push hard for because she believes it's a really good fit. And then I get forwarded those pitches. Like, that's a relationship. That's a working relationship. So that the rep knows they're working for me. So I've earned that. We've earned that over time, her and I. For you, I would say if you have credits, it's time to move on. And I can't tell you the amount of actors I know who level up in reps and then wonder what in God's name took them so long. Because the moment they leveled up, suddenly they were going out for guest stars. Suddenly they were going out for big parts that like matched their resumes. It wasn't like they were, delusional. It was like, yeah, no, you are at that level. You've just been sitting on your agent for like 2 years when you should have moved up, and your agent didn't have the inkling or the power or the whatever to get you better opportunities. And then once you got better opportunities, you're like, is this the life that everyone's been living? This is magical. I mean, have you had that experience, Falk?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? Where you moved up and you were like, holy shit
okay.
balls.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's happened to me several times. So I think usually actors stay with bad reps far too long, especially when you're on the lower level and it hurts you and it costs you often a couple of years. And I think 16 submissions is completely unacceptable. And a conversation should be had of like, okay, so I see you've only submitted me 16 times. I want to have a real conversation about this. And have a real conversation about this, just like if you were in a relationship with a person that was romantic and they were doing something that was completely unacceptable. You would say, like, we need to have a conversation about this. And it would be awkward and it would be painful and it would be uncomfortable. But the conversation needs to happen because the behavior is no longer acceptable.
Now, I just want to asterisk this.
Yeah.
If you said, I only want to play sexy vampires, 16 are great.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It depends
Like
on
some
what...
actors are like, I want to, they're very specific.
I know, but
at
that's
a lower
not,
level.
That's not what this person is doing. It doesn't sound like to me. And remember, when you get agents that are submitting you more and more regularly, it's not just quantity of submissions, it's the quality of the submission, meaning you are correct for the role, plus they have a relationship with that casting director, plus you hopefully have a relationship with that casting director, plus you have a headshot or several that work for roles to be submitted on as like, I can see that working. And then plus you have footage. So take responsibility for your side. If you're like, hey, you only have 16 submissions, but you're calling me with that and you have no reel, or your reel is really sad because you shot it with like some friends in your apartment and you have 0 credits, then, get your shit together and then have a conversation with your rep. Or don't be surprised if you have this conversation with your rep that they're like, well, I don't have anything to fucking pitch. So what the fuck am I going to pitch? Right?
Yeah.
Hey, Audrey. This is your secret admirer from Los Angeles, California. I love your show. My question is, when did you decide to stop doing casting director workshops? Was it reps, credits, auditions, ran out of money, couldn't take it anymore? Would love to hear your answer. Thank you for everything you do.
Okay, Falk, go for it.
For me, I think it just sort of naturally happened. It was a long time ago. I loved them. I wish I had never stopped them back then. There were more opportunities because it was like a gym. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't ever get called in. I mean, you did really well with that, right?
Eventually, but it was a long time. It was years.
I made some relationships and, but for me it was more about like just seeing how it goes, how I can like be comfortable with casting people and just sort of getting a mock opportunity to try out and also just, try something fun acting wise and see how it lands. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I just sort of stopped them. I don't know why, to be honest.
That's hilarious.
I think I started working.
Yeah, I think for me, I stopped doing them, kind of a combination of the timing worked out in that I was told I couldn't do them anymore, / also they died because in Los Angeles is what I would say. But I, like you, love them. And now that they're kind of back in LA, I like secretly.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, they're back in LA, percolating again.
Okay.
They have like very crazy restrictions. They like do not take headshots. Like it's, they're like really clear, like this is a class. And so like, which is great. I think they needed to be cleaned up. I don't think they needed to disappear, but I think they needed to be cleaned up, which seems like they've been cleaned up and now they're budding again, which is great. But I did them for about 10 years. And I had zero success for, I would say, the first 8 years.
Good on you, girl.
Well, I can't stop, won't stop.
Just like a pit bull.
He knows me. I just, yeah. So I'm going to get you a casting director. But I love them for the same reason of a gym. I couldn't replicate my audition nerves in any other situation except for in front of casting directors. I had done audition classes, and when it comes to class, like I thought I'm great. Like, I don't know. So
you're in your comfort zone in a way. If you have a good class, right?
Yeah. Well, in all classes, even if I wasn't uncomfortable, like class always felt comfortable, and I felt okay to fail. Yeah. I felt safe to fail. And in front of casting directors, I felt like, save my life. Casting directors, please save me. So I had to really work out my relationship with them and my dynamic with them over time. And I will say, even today, many of the offices that are booking me are the offices that I did workshops with for so many years. And I just wasn't at a place where they could really use me. And now that I can, they're excited to use me in their work and their shows because they know I've been around trucking along just like they have for a really long time. So I guess what you really want to know is like, when do I think you should stop doing workshops? I was told to not do them anymore after I booked Godless. I was told it starts to make the agent and the manager look bad. If you're going to audition or you're going to workshops, it's in essence saying like, hey, I want you to see me. And so that means that I want you to see me because my reps can't get me seen. And so it starts to make you look needy and desperate, which would not be my intention anymore. It would just be like, I just want to act on a weekend.
Yeah, totally.
And like try some material out and try it out in front of people. And, kind of, I think like the equivalent of comedians going and working in like clubs to just like test out some work. It's like, I just want to.
I wish it was more acceptable, because I feel like there was a time when like on set, like actors didn't want to admit that they were still in class at a certain level, and you shouldn't. And I was like, I don't know, like, don't you want to act when you're not on set?
Yeah, no, I think that stigma is gone. I think a lot of working actors are still in class, and that's perfectly acceptable.
Totally.
But again, class takes a lot of, what I loved about workshops is like that I would just go in, do them, watch some actors work for a couple hours, do my work, meet a casting director, bounce out.
Yep.
And I thought that was a fantastic thing.
Great gym, yeah.
Versus like going and working on a scene for 16 hours and then sitting in class and then doing the scene and then working it again. That was great for a particular level. And many of you, I really think, need to be doing that more than you need to be doing workshops. But at the level that I had sort of gotten to, I felt like the best gym really became more like just coming in and steadily doing some reps and getting inspired.
Yeah, totally.
And
seeing other actors that are doing your casting maybe or in general.
Or even not, and being like, oh, you're so clear. That's so interesting. Yeah. Like you don't have any credits yet, but I can see where you're going and I'm excited for them. Right. Like I loved that. And I love the challenge of getting some sides suddenly. So I would continue to do them until your reps tell you to stop. What do you think, Falk?
That, or you'll just clearly know that you don't need to go anymore.
Right. So how would you clearly know that you don't need to go anymore?
I just feel like if you're at a level where you're very satisfied with your auditions, you know how many you're getting, the people in regular casting are like, hey, Robert or whoever, like you're just starting to feel like, okay, I've made my mark, at least in the auditioning circle.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I would say too. If you're an actor who's lost a little momentum, because I used to run workshops and it was super cool because I got to see who is successful, like who would then get called in or whatever. And I would like walk the casting director their car. They would talk about an actor that was interesting. And I want to say that they forget about you. Casting directors forget about you. And I loved so many of the more senior actors like crushed from workshops because they'd been around for such a long time, but their resumes were great. And maybe that casting director was like a younger, newer casting director that wasn't familiar with them. And when casting directors are doing workshops, they're looking for people to bring to the table that are like maybe somebody you didn't think of, but is an awesome find. Yeah. Like they want to find little crystals, right?
They want you to be great, guys. They always want you to be great.
They really do. And so I loved how so many of the actors that were really successful from workshops were actors who'd been acting for sometimes a couple decades and had resumes and just felt like things had gotten a little stale and they weren't getting called in to the degree that their resume reflected. And they were just sort of working class actors. They would go in, do a workshop, crush it because they're awesome because they've been at it forever. And then they would book like a recurring guest star from it. So that's something to consider too, if you're thinking about it. I don't know if that's helpful. It sound like conflicting messages, but that's what I got. But wait, Falk, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by weaudition.com. That's weaudition.com. Use promo code Audrey25. You guys are loving weaudition.com. I love that you love it. A lot of you are using it for self-tape May. I use it a couple times already to practice for my self-tapes. I just like to run stuff, get it in my body and my mouth, and learn a little bit about how the words flow, just working it with somebody. I am a huge fan of working things out loud. I know some of you don't care. I'm not one of those people. I really need to, use it and work it. So weaudition.com, they have a way for you to do self-tapes on there. They have all kinds of readers from all kinds of prices on there. Some of them are free. So go on weaudition.com. Soups recommend it. Promo code Audrey25.
Hi, Audrey. My name is Bugden. I'm listening from Los Angeles. And I just wanted to ask you what exactly your list is that you go through when you're learning your sides. Because it seems like you always talk about it on your podcast, but I don't believe you've ever actually mentioned what those steps are. And I would just love to learn about your process and just how you go through memorizing lines and figuring out your character and just what that list looks like. So I'm trying to create a list of my own. Okay, thank you so much. Love you. Love this podcast. It's helped me so much. I recommend it to all my friends. You're the best, Audrey. Thanks for doing this. Bye.
Okay, so hey girl, hey. So listen, I know that you guys have been reaching out to me about what's on my checklist, and it's actually really private. I really encourage you to create your own checklist. My checklist is mostly a combination of Amy Linden's actor checklist and Milton Kinselis's actor checklist. I sort of combined the two, and then I've added stuff that is really important to me. But when I say my list is private, I've shown like literally one person, I think, my checklist before. And it's because it's got a lot of stuff on there about me, about my technique, and things that I know are personal habits for me. And that's what I really encourage for all of you is, start with someone's checklist. And then as you go, as you practice, as you realize that you have certain habits that you have verified are actual problems, not made up in your head, are actual problems because, actors make things up, but you verified through statistics, through feedback over time that it's something that you need to be consistently keeping an eye on. Well, that's something that you should then add to your checklist. I know some of you leave relationship out the window. I know some of you really have a thing about going too big, or some of you going too small. And all of these are just ways for you to hold yourself accountable and create your own technique, because once you get auditions, you don't have the luxury of rehearsing with somebody on it for 16 hours. You don't have the luxury of having 6 weeks to work on it before it goes up and then tests in front of an audience and then opens. That's not what film and television auditions are. So having a really concise technique, I think, is really important. But you create it for you. You find it. You create it. All right, guys. I love you.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Okay. Then I think that's it for our listener questions. Falk, do you have any questions for me?
What movie this year are you most excited about?
Oh, I don't think I'm excited about any movies right now.
I feel very similar.
I hate to tell you guys, I think like movies are dead. And I think like, I've been telling you that for years. I actually think that there is a beautiful, though they're dead, they're not forgotten. I think it's a lot like plays now, where there's some really beautiful plays that are happening. But by and large, America isn't like, hey, did you see that play last night? Like that's not happening. And it's a lot to do with financing and such. But like when I go to a film festival, there's incredible work happening. Like people are telling some beautiful stories. But what's happening is that they're going to these film festivals, they're telling these beautiful stories, and then they're getting swooped up by Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, and doing a limited series as opposed to going and doing a feature film. Oh, lies. I'm excited about Tarantino's new movie.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, the one with DiCaprio and Brad Pitt. Oh my God, the trailer looks so good. And I said, I just really hope like we can get a really good Tarantino, and then maybe that year we can get a really good Coen Brothers movie again. And Jesse's like, yay, 90s.
Yeah, 90s.
And I was like, but it happened like a few years ago and it was really great and I loved it and they were so magical. So I'm looking super forward to it. It looks like Leonardo DiCaprio is having a blast in that one, and that's my favorite stuff he does. Okay, Falk. Now that you guys, he had this movie that came out. It didn't do well. Just heads up.
It did so well.
It did.
I mean, you've all heard about it.
Not well. And it was like one that he was really. The last time he was here, he was like super excited because it was like going to be a game changer opportunity. And so I want to know, how are you now? Where are you now? As for those listening, about like what I would call, I'm calling phase 4. So phase 3 is like you're working, you've had a couple of years on your belt where you make insurance. And phase 4 is like, you can call your agent and be like, hey, are there any TV opportunities I can take this month? Can we keep an eye out? Like that to me is of a certain level of your reps are seeking you out to like dine with you, to hang out with you. They're trying to keep you. That's like a phase 4 actor. So what do you notice about what has changed in your pursuit from phase 1 to phase 4 as far as attitude is concerned? Is there anything that's gotten better, or is it mostly same shit, different day?
I think, and you know me, so you can keep me honest, but I think from 1 to 4, you just try to keep your attitude more and more in check, and sort of go, where can I change? What is on me? What can I do? Because I do think early on it is so hard and so tough of a business that often you want to just sort of go, it's not my fault. Like if they just did, like there's so much
shit,
anger and like despair that you have. That now it just becomes, we've said this last time, a job, and you really want to do it well, and that there's this ebb and flow. I mean, like this film, and I think you do, what did you call, a game changer. I thought this was going to be a game changer. That now means something different for me than it did at phase 3.
Yeah, what does that mean to you now?
A game changer now means to me, and it always will be successful. Like this movie for me as a game changer, it was a game changer, but it was because I got to work with Zemeckis. I learned so much. It was my expectations of what that project would bring to me.
Right, as opposed to something that like
now I book all the time.
What transforms your career like that.
Exactly.
Like it's sort of what you were saying, Winter's Bone, like takes you up and moves you over.
And I honestly think Winter's Bone, let's take it, that wasn't overnight. Like I think you transform your career, and then one of those projects will be the one that helped you with that because it's now noticeable. But it's you over the 10, 15 years doing workshops or whatever it is that ultimately transform your career. No one project does it. But there will be one project where people think that that's the one that did it for you,
Yeah, that's...
Oh, and it does, to a certain degree. But like you always say, when you've had that game changer project, you're at a new level, you want new things, and you feel like you need a game changer project,
Yeah, I feel, I love that thing that you said about that you just get better at keeping your attitude in check. I think that's correct. Like you are better at managing your expectations versus reality, and you're working more diligently to keep your gratitude higher than your expectations. That's more of a conscious, continual choice, because my experience is that anytime I like start to even let my ego peek out a little bit, I'm just massively destroyed in the smallest ways. So I like that answer. Any questions like that you have for me, career related?
Yeah, no, I do actually. What is it right now? What is the thing that you're figuring out right now? Like having come off a series, also a game changer for you, where you were like, this is happening. And then how long has it been?
Well, I shot that in 2016. It came out in 2017. So like a year and a half since it was released. Really.
So having done that and then having follow-up, you got the OA coming out.
Yeah, I've got some guest stars in the works.
And so like, where are you at with all that now?
Well, I think twofold. I'm working very fastidiously on improving my half-hour multicam game. I have discovered that I need a little bit more finesse in the execution of that to reflect in my statistics. But I would say on a bigger level, like what I desire, like what my like core, like
craving.
Like craving is exactly the right word, is a role where I get to express more of myself. And I've had a taste of that through the podcast because I get to show all the colors of myself. I get to show, I'm very honest about, the sadness and the devastation and the struggle, and both personally and professionally, and then also optimistic and enthusiastic, and then also mean and bossy, and then also, hopefully charming and encouraging. And I think that I'm hungry for all of those colors to be put to work in a professional tapestry, because I think I have a lot to give, and I have a lot of energy, and I have a lot of give as a person. And I think that's, to me, if I were a creative, that would be a kind of person I would want in a front and center position on a show that I were doing, because I know it takes a lot of energy and a lot of stamina and a lot of grace to continue to push a show forward for a long-term period. And so that's kind of what I'm craving, is an opportunity to really go in and reveal.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Which I think is something that is set free by leveling up. I think I just started that now too. Like I feel like early on you're so concerned about what's working, just getting work.
Yeah, right.
It takes a while to get to say, you know what, I'm an artist too.
Yeah.
Who wants to be like, what you said, express myself in my fullest version.
Right. Yeah, that's exciting to me.
It takes a while. Yeah, it's amazing. Congratulations.
Right? Thank you. All right, guys. That was fun. Thank you, Falk.
Leah, thanks for having me.
Don't forget your towel. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, we are talking to an agent. We are talking to an agent at Artists and Representatives, formerly known as Stone Manor Sellers Agency. And we are talking to Adrian Pelarou, who is recently promoted to partner. And I couldn't be more excited about this episode. He is a fan of the podcast. He has clients who listen. He has a great client list. I really think this is a real catch, and I'm so excited and so grateful for him for coming on. He is just the biggest delight. So you're going to love it. Special thanks this week to Falk Hentschel. Falk Hentschel came over to Los Angeles. He celebrated Jesse's birthday. It was a good time. And I was like, hey, while you're here, let's roll up some listener questions. And because he's an actor, he always likes to be in the spotlight. So he was like, sounds good. So thanks, Falk, so much for your information and your perspective. I really appreciate it. This show is produced by Jesse Lumen, my now husband. What's up? You guys, he's still so handsome. This episode is edited by Patricia Cuffie-Jones and Thomas Snodgrass. Also, shout out to Thomas for the mic assistance now and then. It's still good to have your sound guy across the street. Show music is brought to you by Ari De Niro. Theme song assistance is by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill. All right, you guys, don't forget your towel. Post those self-tapes. Don't forget your safety pin. Don't forget your towel.